Hey, welcome. A lot of programs this week. Looks like people are exhausted. Hey, Rooks, can you close the door? Omakyan Tamirandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Shakshunumilitamina Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. So we're continuing our study of Bhagavad Gita. This is a little recap of the last discussion. So Arjuna has surrendered to Krishna to solve his problems in life. As I like to argue, that if we knew what made us happy, we would already be happy. And so if we're not yet happy, that means we don't know. And that leaves room for guidance, the guidance of the teacher, the guru. So Arjuna is not happy. So he surrendered to Krishna to solve his unhappiness problem. So his unhappiness problem is basically twofold. We've mentioned in the last discussion, he's suffering, and there's an inner conflict, which is an existential one, a conflict of identity. Karpanya dosho uparata swabhava. Arjuna says, my swabhava, my nature, or my sense of identity, is afflicted by the fault of ignorance of the true self. Right. So I have this little image on the wall. I don't know, in the camera, it like glares. Looks like sunlight. You can't even see it. I'll have to figure that out later. So here in the inner conflict, you have the ego, which kind of fragments our sense of identity. For Arjuna, he was a warrior. He's also a grandson. He's also a student. He's also a cousin. And some of these identities are conflicting with one another. For example, his identity as a warrior, there's a certain duty that has to be performed. But that duty involves him also fighting with persons that are dear to him. And that conflicts with another sense of his identity as a grandson or as a student. Just like sometimes it may happen that we experience this fragmentation of ego and then those different sense of identities clashing with one another. For example, suppose you fall in love with someone that your mother doesn't like. So you also love your mother and you also love this person. So dilemma is already there. And she intensely doesn't like this person. And you intensely like them. So you identify as the son or daughter of your mother, but you also identify as the bae of this person. So suppose the mother says that and now you want to get married. So the mother says, if you marry this person, I will disown you. Then what do you do? What type of decision do you make? So then this is just an example of how the fragmentation of the ego causes so much of conflict inside. So you want to honor your mother because you love her, but you also want to honor the bae because you love the bae also. So this conflict is there. How do you make a decision? So this fragmentation of identity happens because of the ego. And it leads to all sorts of existential crises that one has. For example, one may have a political identity, and that political identity also starts to clash with some of your conventional life. And you don't know which one to choose. Do I choose to act in the situation with my political identity, or it's like as a human person? So that's the inner conflict that Arjuna is suffering. And of course, that inner conflict is also affecting him externally. So he also has the outer conflict. Prachami tvam dharma samudachita. He said, dharma samudachita. I am bewildered about what is my duty. What is it that I'm supposed to do? So the outer conflict is an ethical one. So the first teachings of Krishna kind of addresses these two problems that Arjuna specifically brought to Krishna's feet, his feet. The first one being the existential one. So Krishna answered that by saying that you are not this body. So he gave him a sense of identity that is above the ego, and 2:11 through 30. That the self existing beyond the body. So you have to see this situation from that sense of identity. And that solves the existential problem. Well, at least abstractly in your head, it gets unfragmented to some degree or synthesized by looking at all those identities through the lens of being an actual eternal Atman. Krishna answered the question that Arjuna had about the ethical dilemma by saying that you should do your duty. And of course, that duty, as far as the presentation of Krishna goes, is for the purpose of enjoyment. Either you can enjoy, and there's two ways you can enjoy it: on worldly enjoyment or earthly enjoyment or celestial enjoyment, the enjoyment in the hereafter. So in this way, Krishna kind of in those two passages has already answered Arjuna's question, the specific questions that he brought to his lotus feet. Now the problem is how do these two ideas synthesize? Because with the concept that the self is not a part of this world, what follows that conception is the idea of why should I do anything in the world? Why should I be involved with the world whatsoever? So such a concept leads to a lifestyle, such, for example, like a monastic lifestyle or a lifestyle of a yogi going to the forest. Nowadays, yogis don't go to the forest. They only go to, 19th Street or 6th Avenue and some yoga studios there. But previously, the yogis used to actually go to the forest and perform yoga. They would not involve themselves with worldly persons whatsoever. And that concept naturally follows the idea that I am different from this world and in a sense have nothing to do with this world. And so therefore renounce the world. So this is one concept, renunciation. And Arjuna in some ways is wanting to renounce the war. Of course, not from the perspective of the Atman, but at least this concept kind of justifies such renunciation. And then you have on the other side, the worldly persons who are trying to enjoy in this world in various sorts of ways. Those who are intelligent try to do so by being responsible, performing their duties in a virtuous way so they can enjoy. Otherwise, there are other methods for enjoyment also. The other method is by vicious activities someone may try to enjoy also. But the basic idea is exploit and enjoy in this world. So these are the two basic psychologies that you'll encounter even in your own life. One type of psychology is you try to enjoy. Another type of psychology is you renounce. Of course, in the immature state, this thing plays itself out immaturely. It is Bhoga Tyaga. We've seen this concept come up in the Nectar of Devotion, Bhoga Tyaga. Bhoga means you try to enjoy, and when that enjoyment is frustrated, you try to renounce. Or you try, because you can't do it for very long. I always like to tell the story of the sour grapes when always bring up this point. There was one fox was there. He was trying to get some grapes that were on some branch. So he was jumping for the grape. Why he jumping for the grapes? Because he wants to? And he wants to enjoy. Otherwise, there's no reason to jump for the grapes. So he's jumping, but somehow the grapes are just outside of reach. So he says, anyway, I don't want these grapes. Actually, what is grapes? It becomes philosophical. So it becomes philosophical. What are these grapes? Actually, grapes are not good. So then he renounces them because he cannot quite enjoy them. But he walks a little bit further, and there's a lower branch with the same grapes there. And then immediately he feels these are the good grapes. And then again, he becomes philosophical for enjoyment. So like that, we try to, when we're not able to enjoy, we renounce. And of course, our renunciation is short-lived when we see opportunities for enjoyment again. Just like I've shared this story many times of when I was 17 and my roommate was depressed because his girlfriend of 7 years broke up with him. So he was depressed for 1 month. He did not get out of the bed, hardly ate anything. And I was wondering why he just didn't get another girlfriend and my cousin informed me that because that's what love looks like. And I was like, oof, yeah, forget love. So the story continued. After 1 month, he got out of the bed finally and became energized. Then he, proclaimed to the house residents, I will never do this again, like this, fall in love. I will never date and all these things. And 1 week later, we went to the bar. I went to the bar. I didn't drink because I wasn't into those things even then. We went to the bar, and then he caught, or maybe got caught. I don't know how you want to think of it. And then he started dating again. So immediately he tried to renounce. That renunciation lasted for 1 month and 1 week. And then again, Boga. So these are the two mentalities that come up. And with these conceptions, you have either I'm an Atman, I'm different from the world. So why involve myself in the world? It promotes renunciation. Or I have this swadharma, I have this identity that's involved with the world. And therefore, let me try to enjoy in this world. So these are the two basic ideas. So they seem to be mutually exclusive. That on the one hand, I'll either enjoy or renounce. We cannot do both. So now the next passage of the Gita, we're going to be looking at verses 38 through, well, ideally 53, but I don't think I'll get that far. Krishna wants to kind of synthesize these two ideas. It is not either I'm a self, therefore renounce the world, or I'm this body, therefore try to enjoy it. You can say there's maybe a middle ground, that you can exist in the world, but in a spiritual way. And this sort of idea should be very relevant because that's what people are promoting, how to live in the world in a spiritual way. Otherwise, we get the idea that I'll do the spiritual thing when I am 50 or 60, isn't it? Yesterday he was telling me that when I am 60, then I'll do sadhana. That concept comes up because the idea is I should be spiritual, but spiritual is in another domain altogether. And right now I'm young, I have to enjoy life. So let me act in this domain. And then when I'm old and wrinkled and can't do anything else, then spiritual. So ideas come like this. No. So there's a way you can exist in the world spiritually. So this doctrine of the Gita is called Karma Yoga, and we'll see how Krishna tries to bring these two together. Because remember, and I brought this up in last class also, Krishna's presentation of the Atman as being different from the body was to convince Arjuna to fight. So it was, although such teachings often inspire renunciation from the world, Krishna's use of those teachings was to inspire Arjuna to fight and perform his dharma. So obviously Krishna has another idea in mind when he's speaking like this. And he starts to get into that idea in this next passage, verses 38 through 40. So we'll look at some of these verses really quick. So he first wants to change gears and introduce a new topic. So this is verse 38 through, I'm going to read verses 38 through 40 first. The passage is up to 53. But we'll just look at these verses first. He switches gears here. Do thou fight for the sake of fighting, without considering happiness or distress, loss or gain, victory or defeat. And by so doing, you shall never incur sin. Very difficult. If you're fighting someone, you fight to win, isn't it? Maybe you have not been in too many physical fights. Have you ever been in a physical fight before? No. Of course. I have a black body. Not by choice. Bullies used to love me. I was a favorite target of bullies. The only problem for them is that I fought back. Sometimes I got whooped, but sometimes I did the whooping too. So you ever been in a fight before? Oh, wow. Surprising. You see, no? You're all very innocent. With Karsh, you've been in a fight before? Twice. Oh, you can count. Just twice. Just twice. Wait, why I bring up the fighting point? Oh, yeah. So if you're fighting, you fight to win. You don't fight to get whooped. It's not like you train to get whooped. You train to win. Or, of course, fighting like in soccer matches, some sports. I like ping pong. When I play ping pong, I play to win. I don't come out there to get whooped, and it's not like, oh, whatever, It's all just a good time after all. No. So this is already a hard thing, but this is Krishna switching gears here. Do thou fight for the sake of fighting without considering happiness or distress, loss or gain, victory or defeat. And by so doing, you shall never incur sin. Thus far, I have described this knowledge to you through analytical knowledge. Now listen as I explain it in terms of working without fruitive results. O son of Pitta, when you act in such knowledge, you can free yourself from the bondage of works. In this endeavor, there is no loss or diminution, and a little advancement on this path can protect one from the most dangerous type of fear. So in these three verses, Krishna's introducing the topic, and he's also glorifying the subject matter he's about to speak about. Particularly if you look at verse 39, for those of you who have Gita on you, Esha te abhita sankhya. So previously, I was describing in terms of sankhya. The word sankhya means to analyze. So basically, it refers to this discrimination between Atman and the body. So basically, sankhya is the meaning here. So I've described previously, according to this idea, just making discernment between Atman and and hypocrisy or matter. Buddhi-yoga Trimanshrinu, but now you should hear about this buddhi-yoga. So this is the next topic. Krishna uses the word buddhi-yoga. We'll see why the word buddhi-yoga is used, because buddhi is very important. Nasti buddhi are yuktasha, nacha yuktasha. What is that? Bhavana. Krishna says in the Gita. We'll see this verse later. I always like this verse. Nasti buddhi. That sounds so funny. Na asti buddhi. Na asti buddhi means there is no existence of buddhi. Buddhi means intelligence. So na asti buddhi ayuktasha. For one who is ayuktasha, which means not connected to the truth or reality, then there can be no buddhi for them. No, na asti buddhi. There does not exist buddhi for them. What is that? Nasti buddhi ayuktasha. Na chayuktasha. Bhavana, and for one who has no buddhi because they're ayukta, then there is no meditation on the Supreme. For one who cannot meditate on the Supreme, then there is no peace. And for one who is not peaceful, ashantasha kutasukam, where is happiness? This verse is coming later, very nice verse. So Krishna talks, he says, now I've talked about it in terms of Sankhya, now you hear about it in terms of buddhi. Buddhi-yoga. And he says here, buddhi-yukta, by engaging the buddhi. So here, what does this mean to engage the buddhi? Because that's something that we're not actually accustomed to doing, believe it or not. And engaging our intelligence, at least how Krishna indicates. He'll say it more explicitly in a few verses coming up. But if you connect this to the previous verse, 38, where you're seeing loss and defeat, what are the nomenclatures or the words used there? Equipoise and happiness and distress, loss or gain, victory or defeat. So this is what he'll mean by engaging the buddhi. The buddhi is the locus for knowledge. So you're engaging the world according to your knowledge and not allowing it to be eclipsed by duality, which is very difficult. As soon as we leave this classroom, we'll be eclipsed by duality, right? You go outside, it's cold, and the whole time you'll be thinking, it's so cold. Why do I live in New York? And you start having this whole internal dialogue because your knowledge is eclipsed by duality. So buddhi, engaging in buddhi means you keep it steady in the face of duality. He'll say this explicitly. So now I'll describe this in terms of buddhi-yoga. And by engaging in this buddhi, now he glorifies the topic, you'll become free from the bondage of karma. Karma bandhana, or what is the word he uses? Yeah, karma bandham prahasisi. You shall become free from the bondage of karma. So this is the first glorification of the topic. What is that? You become free from the bondage of karma. You want to become free from the bondage of karma? Yes. Are you sure? Yeah. Yes. Are you absolutely 100% sure?
When I'm 60.
When I'm 60. Karma bandha means the bondage of karma. So the one is trapped in the material world because of karmic activities. We do some activity, there's a fruit that is produced from the activity. And because in one day you're producing so many fruits, in one lifetime, so many fruits are being produced, they cannot all be enjoyed in one lifetime. And so you have to come back just so you can get the fruit of your previous activity. Of course, when you come back, then you're producing more fruits. And that way the storehouse of fruits are accumulating like anything. And you have to enjoy all those fruits. That never gets over. And so this is called as the bondage of karma. It is a way of saying samsara. So by this knowledge that I will now speak, you can become free from this bondage of karma. You understand? That's first glorification. Then in verse 40, he continues the glorification by saying, this is a very famous verse for those of you who like to learn verses. Then this would be a really good one to learn. And maybe you already know it. Neha vikrama na shosti pratyavaya na vidyate. You know this one? Salpamapiyasya dharmasya tarayate marutobaya. He says, in this endeavor, if you perform this yoga, na abhikrama nasho asti. In this endeavor, there is no loss. So when you do material activities, then you have to see them all the way to the end. Otherwise, it is useless, isn't it? If you don't see it until its completion, then it is useless thing. You don't get the result. Just like I was saying, one of my friends, he's a professional. Well, I don't know about professional, but he's a bodybuilder, and he also is in pre-med. So someone was asking him about pre-med, if they should do it or not. So he was giving them fair warning that if you do pre-med, make sure you can stick it out all the way to the end. He says, because what happens with many persons, they start pre-med and it's extremely competitive, extremely difficult to, be successful. And what happens is that a lot of people just start failing halfway through, like not being able to take the competition, not being able to keep up with all that, and then they don't complete it. So not completing, they drop out of medical school, but they have like 300K debt because it's very expensive. And so they'll do it for like 2-3 years, but somehow couldn't complete it, and they'll end up with a 300K or $300,000 debt and no way to pay it back because they're not becoming doctors or anything. So that is material life. Or in the material world, unless you complete it to the end, then you get no result from it. The material world is cruel like that. But he's saying here, in this endeavor, there is no loss. In other words, if you don't complete it to the end, you can still get benefited from it. And pratyavaya na vidyate, there is no diminution in this endeavor. It means if there's some mistake, it does not become less, which is not true in the material world. If you make some mistake in the activity, then it produces a less result. So in this way, he's trying to glorify this knowledge. Swapam apyasta dharmasya tayate maratobaya. By even a little endeavor in this path, you can be saved from the greatest fear. Tayate maratobhaya. So what is the greatest fear? Of course, you're thinking something. What is the greatest fear for you? Not graduating college or something?
No, not achieving the things I want to achieve.
Yes, this is a normal answer. The greatest fear is you have to take birth again in the material world. Maybe as an animal. You're afraid of that?
Yeah.
Sometimes in the West, when they first came to know this reincarnation thing, they were saying, oh, it'd be cool. I can come back as a tiger. I come back as a bird. But in Vedic culture, this is a great cause of fear, to come back as an animal. So by a little endeavor in this path, you can be saved from the greatest fear. So the idea here is that there is no failure in this path. There's only degrees of success. So it frees you from karma, and there is no failure in the path. There's only degrees of success. So in this way, Krishna is trying to encourage us to take this subject matter he's about to speak very seriously. You understand? What is this subject called? This buddhi-yoga. Later on, he will refer to it as karma yoga. So they're the same thing, at least in the first 6 chapters of the Gita, karma yoga. All right. 241. Let's look at 241. This is a very important verse in the passage. 241 through 40. Well, we could say 46. For those of you who have Gita, I'm just going to read the English first. So those who are on this path are resolute in purpose, and their aim is one. O beloved child of the Kurus, the intelligence of those who are irresolute is many-branched. Men of small knowledge are very much attached to the flowery words of the Vedas, which recommend various fruitive activities for elevation to heavenly planets, resulting good birth, power, and so forth. Being desirous of sense gratification and opulent life, they say that there is nothing more than this. In the minds of those who are too attached to sense enjoyment and material opulence and who are bewildered by such things, the resolute determination for devotional service to the Supreme Lord does not take place. The Vedas deal mainly with the subject of the 3 modes of material nature, O Arjuna. Become transcendental to these 3 modes. Be free from all dualities and from all anxieties for gain and safety, and be established in the self. All purposes served by a small well can at once be served by a great reservoir of water. Similarly, all the purposes of the Vedas can be served to one who knows the purpose behind them. All right, so we're going to make a little list here. Krishna's contrasting basically the spiritual activity that he's speaking about here, known as buddhi-yoga, karma yoga, and the material activity. Or using another language, he's contrasting the difference between karma and karma yoga. This is the contrast that he's trying to make. So there's karma, which is mostly what we do. And then there's karma yoga. So he's making a contrast between these two. Karma means that activity you do in this world so you can enjoy. That's called karma. Right? So what karma you're doing? So if someone is going to school, why are you going to school? Yes. So you can enjoy.
Not necessarily.
You are working at some place. Why are you working at the place? Yes, he gives the right answer. You doing some karma? What karma you're doing? You're working too. Why are you working?
To survive.
Yeah, true. And why do you want to survive?
My ego as well.
Yeah, you survive so you can enjoy.
Yeah.
The bottom line is always enjoyment. We want to enjoy. That is natural. So when you do some activity for enjoyment, that is basically presented here as karma. You're gonna give some like deeper answer. Hold on. Okay, and then there's karma yoga. Now the important point is that the reason Krishna has to make this contrast is because externally it looks exactly the same. So he's going to ask Arjuna to perform his duty. So it's going to look like the same as Duryodhana on the other side of the field. They're both fighting in the war. So what is the difference between a Duryodhana and Arjuna? So the difference is one is doing karma and another one is doing karma yoga. So you have to understand the distinction, then you can apply karma yoga. Otherwise, the default setting is karma. So he wants to make a list of the contrast between these two so that we can get a chance to apply karma yoga. What do you want to ask?
Well, I think that even if the deeper answer is always going to be enjoyment.
Yeah.
There could be many ways to justify it in noble ways. Like I'm just working because I need to pay off this huge debt to help my parents.
Right.
So sometimes I was thinking, how does someone confront that? I need to enjoy when there's many ways that I don't know can be justified or.
Would justify enjoyment?
Yeah, well,
yeah, I mean, no, I don't know if it has to be. I don't know if it has to be justified. It just is the reality.
Yeah, I guess I was thinking that it's hard to understand that reality when you're. I don't know what I'm saying, but anyway.
I think you're saying it's hard when you have like so many maybe idealistic reasons why maybe you're doing it. It's hard to face the truth that you're just trying to enjoy.
Yes. Yes, you have some. Yes, we dress it up very nicely. So because the raw truth of it is ugly, so it should be dressed up nicely in the form of altruism, humanitarianism, or maybe it's dressed not so. Maybe it's dressed raggedy, and you just flat out, I'm trying to steal from you. Some people are just so shameless, depending on their level of consciousness. But the bottom line is always the same: enjoyment. Therefore, I often chide some of our friends who are particularly preoccupied with this when they criticize Donald Trump. I'm saying, well, what is the difference between you and him? He is enjoying in that way, and you're trying to enjoy in this way, and I'm trying to enjoy it. There's no difference between any of us. Only difference is we're envious of him because he has more power and influence to enjoy in ways that we can't. That's hard to face up with. It's like, no, I would never be like that because I'm such a good, wonderful person. Until you get money and power and influence, and then you become evil. Of course, we don't like to think that's possible, but it's certainly possible when you're on the material platform. Yes.
Is there a middle ground where you know that
Yes, karma yoga.
Yeah. That the time you're serving or something.
Yeah, of course, we can get into the bhakti elements a little bit later. But the point that's being made here is that there's a contrast between karma and karma yoga. Yeah, that's a whole nother thing that comes up. We won't even get into these sorts of terms. But the distinction Krishna is trying to make here is that there's a difference between karma and karma yoga. And the reason he has to make this distinction is because they look the same externally. So you can work at a job and be situated in karma yoga, or you can be situated in karma, depending on the nature of your buddhi specifically. how your intelligence is operating in that situation. So no need to justify, just need to get enlightenment. This is the raw reality of the thing. When one is unenlightened, then their bottom line is always enjoyment. And if you get proper knowledge, as Krishna is trying to give to Arjuna, then you can be in that same position, but in a different, you use the word consciousness or a different sort of intelligence that is useful for upliftment or enlightenment, liberation. Okay, we'll just go through this list and then we'll end for today. Let's look at these verses. First, distinction between these two. You understand karma yoga? So which one are you doing? Karma or karma yoga?
Karma. I want to do karma yoga.
Okay, so what do you need to do karma yoga?
Doing karma while simultaneously devoting it to God. Is that it?
You're just guessing, but that was a good guess. You have to come to the Bhagavad Gita classes. So learn about karma yoga, then you can do. So let's look at this contrast here. Let's look at 241. Vyavasayamika buddhi ekaha kurunandana. So first distinction here. Bahu shakahiya nantasha buddhayo avyavasayina. So in karma yoga or buddhi-yoga, vyavasayamika buddhi, the buddhi is fixed on one point, ekaha. So here it's translated as resolute intelligence. Resolute buddhi. Fixed on one point. And what is that one point? That I'm interested in enlightenment in this context. Because also, you may know you're not the body, but you cannot act on that platform unless you cannot. We know this thing theoretically, at least if you've heard these first few classes, but you cannot live in that truth on a moment-to-moment basis. Are you able to live in that truth? After the class gets over, I walk outside, someone says something or like bumps into you. I was walking I got these, what are they called? These dry erase markers. I was walking back to the center and one lady was driving and she had a green light and she drove in the intersection and then she just stopped. And we were like waiting for her and then she was just like looking around and my mind immediately started, I was like cursing. In my mind, I was getting crazy over something very minor like that. She just like pulled in front of the thing. I was like, and then I was like, Jai, wait, you spiritual. Let it go. So resolute buddhi means I'm trying to, let's say, bridge the gap between my present state of unenlightenment until I'm actually living in that truth. So resolute buddhi means fix on that particular goal. Whereas the karma guy has, it says here, buddhayo avyavasayina, bahu shaka, his intelligences, many branched intelligence. It means his intelligence is becoming impotent because it's spread to different objects. Bahu shaka hi anantasha. Anantas means unlimited objects that the buddhi is trying to grasp for enjoyment. And so such a buddhi becomes impotent. So many branch. This is one distinction. We'll come back to this later on when Krishna develops the idea, but this is to keep in mind. So even if you're working a job, you can have resolute buddhi, or you can have many branch with, okay, if I can do this and I can get that, and then by getting that, I can get this. The mini branch. I always used to joke like this. I used to live in a monastery, so don't mind this joke. But I used to always joke with the monks in the monastery there. I said, just look at us now. We're happy as single man living in the ashram. It's a nice life. Then you get one desire to, let's say, get married. Don't mind. This is a joke, ashram jokes. We used to joke like this. You get this one desire to get married, and from that desire, you get networked into a whole other set of desires. Okay, if I'm going to get married, I have to pay for that, so I need a job. But I don't have an education, so I got to get an education. And to get an education, I need to get a lower paying job so I can get enough money to get an education. And then your mind starts getting stretched to so many objects. Then you're just driving in the car. You see an IKEA. Yeah, I could put this in the house. Or sometimes you're walking through a nice neighborhood and you start thinking, yeah, I can get a house like this. and I can put this object. So your intelligence starts to get spread out to all these different ideas. I used to call you, you've been networked. I was thinking of writing a song like that. I've been networked. So this is the one distinction there. So Krishna goes on to elaborate on this idea of a many branched intelligence. In verse 42, 43, you can look at this verse. Very nice. First, he says such people are ignorant. Always good to keep that in mind. Avipashita. Yamima pushpitam vacham pravadanti avipashitaha. So he says such persons are with poor fund of knowledge. Yamima pushpitam vacham. They are always bewildered by the flowery words of the Vedas. So what are the flower? We don't read the Vedas, so we don't even know what that says. But we have our own flowery words of the Vedas that we're attracted to. The flowery words of some YouTuber or some politician or some even musician. People take them seriously, which is quite bewildering. You know, they'll like interview Beyonce, and she's like, "Yeah, you know what I think about the political situation?" I'm like, Beyonce, shh, don't embarrass yourself. But people were like, "Yeah, she has a really good point." Influence all her, thousands or millions of followers. So this is called flowery words of the Vedas. Flowery words of the Vedas means that the vibrations that glorify material enjoyment, one becomes bewildered by those sounds or concepts. They are described here as Veda Vadarata. If you can look at these two verses to see the Veda Vadarata means, as Prabhupada translated, the so-called knower of the Vedas. Means they don't really know much about the spiritual, about the essential teaching of the scripture. They just find the things that glorify the things that they're attracted to, and they say that there's nothing more than this. Na anyat asti vadida. There exists nothing more than this. And you can see this thing plays itself out also. Of course, again, we don't hear Vedic knowledge, but the type of knowledge people, they think, oh, I know Bhagavad Gita, isn't it? So many times, especially Indians, I get this all the time from them. I know Bhagavad Gita, isn't it? I know Bhagavad Gita. They can't tell you anything about Bhagavad Gita. But they say, I know Bhagavad Gita. But what does Bhagavad Gita teach? Krishna says, Yatha Ichasi Tatha Guru, do as you like. That is a teaching. I'm already doing that. Why do I have to go through 700 verses to go to that conclusion? That is already going on. Because they don't actually know. They only accept the portions that confirm their own biases. And then they say that there is nothing more than this. Kamatmana. Kamatmana is a nice verse there. I saw it translated in place. They're possessed of lust. Kamatmana means their soul is like filled with kama, not their soul. Like their being is possessed. Just like if you get possessed by a ghost. Okay, no one's had that experience, but maybe you've never seen someone be possessed either. You've seen someone be possessed. Really? You want to describe that?
It's pretty freaky. Yeah, she's making all these weird faces and like pulling her hair and screaming and stuff.
That would be freaky. So kamadmana, possessed by kama. That is going on outside. Just like sometimes I always joke about this, but last winter, it was literally like 15 degrees, probably felt like -5. And there was this one lady outside, she had a skirt on with the splits up the side, like one of those summer skirts with the split. I was like, man, that's powerful. Kamatmana, powerful possession of the kama, the lusty desires there. So they're possessed of lust, swargapara, they're after celestial enjoyment. Jama karma pala pradam, or they're after nice births, nice like children and so on, nice house, nice position and the politics and so on. They're after all these things. Kriya Vishesha Bahulam. They're really into these big rituals. how you say, yeah, like these big rituals. I don't know what would be the equivalent in the West. In the East, they would do these big rituals, Vedic rituals, for getting things material. And there's a big fire. There's a very pompous procession is going on, but it's for a material thing. I don't know what would be. I mean, everything in America, in one sense, is that Kriya Vishesha Bahulam, huh?
And like camping outside of Black Friday.
Camping outside of Black. Okay, Kriya Vishesha Bahulam. Boga Aishwarya Gatemprati. Their only interest is in Boga and Aishwarya. Boga and Aishwarya means enjoyment, and Aishwarya means opulence. So last statements here, just on this 244. This is also a very important verse if you're learning verses from the Gita. For those people who are attached to this Boga and Aishwarya, Boga Aishwarya Prasaktana, Taya Aprahita Chetasam, and their consciousness is stolen by these things. Taya in one commentary means Taya means your mind, Chetasam means consciousness, Aprahita is like snatched by Taya, by all these sounds glorifying material enjoyment. Then Vyavasayamika buddhi, you cannot get the rest of the buddhi that is required for the application of buddhi-yoga. Sabado navidiyate, and they cannot get a fixed mind. So in other words, they remain in the material world. So, okay, so the list for the karma is pretty long. We'll get to the karma yoga in the next passage. This is taken up in verses 47 through 53. He talks about this. Right now we're hearing about karma. All right, are there any other final questions before we stop? I'm going to stop here because my time is up. Yeah.
I find that in day-to-day life, it's very difficult to remain on that platform of fixed intelligence, and for various reasons. And so, we always like to talk about, practical solutions. Everything has to be practical.
I'm like the least one who likes to talk about that, but okay. Yeah.
But even that in and of itself can be challenging because we're conditioned to have no kind of discipline whatsoever. So even remaining consistent in some kind of practical discipline, which helps one to have focused intelligence, can also be challenging. So what is it how do you cultivate that intelligence in a way that's like really imbibe it, where it's not just like a kind of like a like an artificial shield that we just kind of like place on our minds so that we don't suffer as much, something like that. But something that's actually a state of mind, that's kind of like, I always think like the advanced devotee or the ideal devotee who we look up to is like in the state of constant awareness of that spiritual reality. It's not like a fading in and out kind of thing, So of course I understand it takes time, but what does it really mean to like attain that platform or to have that fixed intelligence, rather than it just being like something that we kind of just like layer onto our consciousness without really like imbibing it as a part of our identity.
Well, I think part of it becoming part of our identity, or bridging the gap between like the ideal and what our reality is right now, is just starting the process of application. Because we have to understand that the mind is undisciplined because it has trained itself to be that way also, right? By constant what's the opposite of discipline? Indiscipline, is that a word? Indiscipline is a word? Undisciplined, lax. You think? So you like it? Undisciplined. Okay. Undisciplined is a word. Okay. Thank you. So the mind can be molded in any way, basically. That's why when people or us, when we allow our senses to indulge any sort of information, it just molds the mind in a very particular way. And you can't help feeling the way that you feel. once you allow the mind to be molded in that way, then it's going to move in that particular sort of direction. So just as it's been molded in an undisciplined sort of way, after, practically speaking, probably lifetimes of undisciplined behavior, and so it's got this mental inertia, it can be molded in another way. But just as you cannot turn a car around that's going 100 miles per hour suddenly, it has to slow down first and then turn around. In the same way, the process of remolding the mind is going to take some time. And then time is going to take the endurance, as Krishna has told earlier in the Gita, right? Tam satiksha swabharata, that you have to endure, in a sense, the mental inertia that identifies with ego, that wants to move in the way that it's always been moving and not moving another way. You have to endure all of that so that you can create the necessary momentum to start the remolding process of the mind. And that's the part that we have the hardest time with, because the mental inertia, I mentioned this, I think, in the last class. The thing about knowledge is that it's abstract. Knowledge is necessarily abstract, and it's kind of distant from us. Whereas what we're feeling inside is very close to us. So in terms of priority, we won't prioritize knowledge unless we're forced to, or unless we have really good company, and that's kind of the focus of that company. So it basically is just the hard work of the remolding process and allowing. So that's going to be the challenge, because as you start to remold, the mind's going to say, "Well, no, what about this?" And we're like, "Okay," we have like no resistance whatsoever, you know. I'm having this image by Keshwar Pandit. He told this in a different context, but he said, you know, when the football players are about to come into the stadium and they run through like a piece of paper that's like with their mascot or something, and, you know, kind of like make an entrance. You have this image and like, yeah, and they all run through the piece of paper and then they come out into the field. He says, so us trying to stop Maya, we like that piece of paper. And Maya is like the football player. It just, I'll never, he told me that when I was like 17. I never forgot that, or 18. It was so hilarious. So unfortunately, we have to gain the fitness for that. Just like now, I've been going to the gym a little bit more, and just to meet some regimens. I've been going to the gym in the morning, and one thing, just as a side point, is amazing that I've been the 2 days at 5:45 in the morning. It was completely packed. Like almost every machine was being used. I was disgusted. You know, I was absolutely disgusted. I thought I was going to get a chance to be there without like anyone there. But anyway, going there, I'm a little physically lazy. Like I don't want to do anything. So when I go to the gym and like look at the weight, I'm just like, I had enough energy to come all the way out there, but when I just look at it, just like, and sometimes I'll just look at it like for 5 minutes. It's just like, because just don't want, the body just like, in the mind just gets depressed. Just looking at the way the depression is coming in the mind. But then you push yourself through it and you're gaining the fitness for it. So spiritual life is also like this, gaining the fitness, getting stronger. So the little challenging is there. Big challenge. I think it's with everything, is getting over those first hurdles that's the most difficult.
So you have to like constantly break out of that mental inertia, like every time you try to do something.
Yeah.
At least in the beginning.
Yeah, the beginning is always the most difficult part. Like now, I've been going for 2-3 weeks. I've been doing. Now it's getting more like a routine, so it's not becoming as tough anymore. And even today, I was surprised that I picked up, I forget some weights. I forget the weight number. I was doing like some, what do you call these? Rows or something, forearm rows. Huh? I forget it. It was. And the weight I was using before, I was using the same weight. It felt super light today. I was like, oh, I'm getting stronger. But you know, after 2-3 weeks. So I think getting over the first hurdles is going to be the most challenging part. One thing that could probably help is to, you know, reduce the phone situation. I think this is just and things in even computers. Honestly, just it's quite distracting. I wonder what we could do if we didn't have phones. I remember a time when there were no phones. I don't even know if y'all are old enough to remember that. You, of course, you do. I also. You remember it? Oh my God, that was that came out totally wrong. But these guys are like babies. They're like babies. Do y'all even remember it? Huh?
I remember the first flip
I
phone.
remember it was just Nokia brick phones.
Really? Okay.
I remember when the Razor came out.
Yeah, the razor. But now it's hard to imagine life without a phone, without email. I remember there was like no email, or that was like hardly a thing. Now all these things are weapons of mass distraction, so they're making it very hard to break out of mental inertia. Anyway, such is life. One has to try. All right, Tat Sat. Thanks a lot. Later, guys. We'll finish this passage on Monday, and then I have a questionnaire for y'all. Later.